The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis. Book 3, the 32nd chapter. Self-denial and renunciation of evil appetites. The voice of Christ. My child, you can never be perfectly free unless you completely renounce self. For all who seek their own interest and who love themselves are bound in fetters. They are unsettled by covetousness and curiosity, always searching for ease and not for the things of Christ, often devising and framing that which will not last. For anything that is not of God will fail completely. Hold to this short and perfect advice, therefore. Give up your desires, and you will find rest. Think upon it in your heart, and when you have put it into practice, you will understand all things. The disciple. But this, Lord, is not the work of one day, nor is it mere child's play. Indeed, in this brief sentence is included all the perfection of holy persons. The voice of Christ. My child, you should not turn away or be downcast when you hear the way of the perfect. Rather, you ought to be spurred on. Rather, you ought to be spurred on the more toward their sublime heights, or at least be moved to seek perfection. I would this were the case with you, that you have progressed to the point where you no longer loved self but simply awaited my bidding and his, whom I have placed as Father over you. Then you would please me very much, and your holy life would pass in peace and joy. But you have yet many things which you must give up, and unless you resign them entirely to me, you will not obtain that which you ask. I counsel thee to buy me. I counsel thee to buy of me gold, fire tried, that thou mayest be made rich. Rich in heavenly wisdom, which treads underfoot all that is low. Put aside earthly wisdom, all human self-complacency. I have said, exchange what is precious and valued among men for that which is considered contemptible. For true heavenly wisdom, not to think highly of self and not to seek glory on earth, does indeed seem mean and small, and is well nigh forgotten, as many men praise it with their mouths but shy far away from it in their lives. Yet this heavenly wisdom is a pearl of great price, which is hidden from many. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, Book 3, the 33rd chapter. Restlessness of soul. Directing our final intention toward God. The voice of Christ. My child, do not trust in your present feeling, for it will soon give way to another. As long as you live, you will be subject to changeableness in spite of yourself. You will become merry at one time and sad at another. Now peaceful, but again disturbed. At one moment devout and the next indevout. Sometimes diligent, while at other times lazy. Now grave and again flippant. But the man who is wise and whose spirit is well instructed stands superior to these changes. He pays no attention to what he feels in himself or from what quarter the wind of fickleness blows, so long as the whole intention of his mind is conducive to his proper and desired end, for thus he can stand undivided, unchanged, and unshaken, with the singleness of his intention directed unwaveringly toward me, even in the midst of so many changing events. And the purer this singleness of intention is, with so much the more constancy does he pass through many storms. But in many ways, the eye of pure intention. But in many ways, the eye of pure intention grows dim, because it is attracted to any delightful thing that it meets. Indeed, it is rare to find one who is entirely free from all taint of self-seeking. The Jews of old, for example, came to Bethany to Martha and Mary, not for Jesus' sake alone, but in order to see Lazarus. The eye of your intention, therefore, must be cleansed so that it is single and right. It must be directed toward me, despite all the objects which may interfere. The Imitation of Christ, Book 3, the 34th chapter. God is sweet above all things and in all things to those who love Him. The disciple. Behold, my God and my all. What more do I wish for? What greater happiness can I desire? O sweet and delicious word, but sweet only to him who loves it, and not to the world or the things that are in the world. My God and my all. These words are enough for him who understands and for him who loves. It is a joy to repeat them often. For when you are present, all things are delightful. When you are absent, all things become loathsome. It is you who give a heart tranquility, great peace, and festive joy. It is you who make us think well of all things and praise you in all things. Without you, nothing can give pleasure for very long. For if it is to be pleasing and tasteful, your grace and the seasoning of your wisdom must be in it. What is there that can displease him whose happiness is in you? And on the contrary, what can satisfy him whose delight is not in you? And on the contrary, what can satisfy him whose delight is not in you? The wise men of the world, the men who lust for the flesh, are wanting in your wisdom, because in the world is found the utmost vanity, and in the flesh is death. But they who follow you by disdaining worldly things and mortifying the flesh are known to be truly wise, for they are transported from vanity to truth, from flesh to spirit. By such as these, God is relished, and whatever good is found in creatures, they turn to praise of the Creator. But great, yes, very great indeed, is the difference between delight in the Creator and in the creature, in eternity and in time, in light uncreated and in the light that is reflected. O light eternal, surpassing all created brightness, flash forth the lightning from above and enlighten the inmost recesses of my heart. Cleanse, cheer, enlighten, and vivify my spirit with all its powers, that it may cleave to you in ecstasies of joy. Oh, when will that happy and wished for hour come? Oh, when will that happy and wished for hour come, that you may fill me with your presence and become all in all to me? So long as this is not given me, my joy will not be complete. The old man, alas, yet lives within me. He has not yet been entirely crucified. He is not yet entirely dead. He still lusts strongly against the Spirit, and he will not leave the kingdom of my soul in peace. But you, who can command the power of the sea and calm the tumult of its waves, arise and help me. Scatter the nations that delight in war. Crush them in your sight. Show forth, I beg, your wonderful works, and let your right hand be glorified, because for me there is no other hope or refuge except in you, O Lord my God. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A Kempis, Book 3, the 35th chapter. There is no security from temptation in this life. The voice of Christ, my child, in this life you are never safe. And as long as you live, the weapons of the Spirit will ever be necessary to you. You dwell among enemies. You are subject to attack from the right and the left. If therefore you do not guard yourself from every quarter with the shield of patience, you will not remain long unscathed. Moreover, if you do not steadily set your heart on me with a firm will to suffer everything for my sake, you will not be able to bear the heat of this battle or to win the crown of the blessed. You ought, therefore, to pass through all these things bravely and to oppose a strong hand to whatever stands in your way. For to who him for to him who triumphs, for to him who triumphs, heavenly bread is given, while for him who is too lazy to fight, there remains much misery. If you look for rest in this life, how will you attain to everlasting rest? Dispose yourself then not for much rest, but for great patience. Seek true peace not on earth but in heaven, not in men or in other creatures, but in God alone. For love of God, you should undergo all things cheerfully, all labors and sorrows, temptations and trials, anxieties, weaknesses, necessities, injuries, slanders, rebukes, humiliations, confusions, corrections, and contempt. For these are helps to virtue. These are the trials of Christ's recruit. These form the heavenly crown. For a little brief labor, I will give an everlasting crown, and for passing confusion, glory that is eternal. Do you think that you will always have spiritual consolations as you desire? My saints did not always have them. Instead, they had many afflictions, temptations of various kinds, and great desolation. Yet they bore them all patiently. They placed their confidence in God rather than in themselves, knowing that the sufferings of this life are not worthy to be compared with the glory that is to come. And you, do you wish to have at once that which others have scarcely obtained after many tears and great labors? Wait for the Lord, act bravely, and have courage. Do not lose trust. Do not turn back, but devote your body and soul constantly to God's glory. I will reward you most plentifully. I will be with you in every tribulation. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis. Book 3, the 36th chapter. The Vain Judgments of Men. The Voice of Christ. My child, trust firmly in the Lord. My child, trust firmly in the Lord, and do not fear the judgment of men when conscience tells you that you are upright and innocent. For it is good and blessed to suffer such things, and they will not weigh heavily on the humble heart that trusts in God than in itself. Rather than in itself. Many men say many things, and therefore little faith is to be put in them. Likewise, it is impossible to satisfy all men. Although Paul tried to please all in the Lord and became all things to all men, yet he made little of their opinions. He labored abundantly for the edification and salvation of others as much as lay in himself and as much as he could. But he could not escape being sometimes judged and despised by others. Therefore, he committed all to God who knows all things and defended himself by his patience and humility against the tongues of those who spoke unjustly or thought foolish things and lies and made accusations against him. Sometimes indeed he did answer them, but only lest his silence scandalize the weak. Who are you then, that you should be afraid of mortal men? Today he is here, tomorrow he is not seen. Fear God, and you will not be afraid of the terrors of men. What can anyone do to you by word or injury? He hurts himself rather than you, and no matter who he may be, he cannot escape the judgment of God. Keep God before your eyes. Therefore, do not quarrel with peevish words. If it seems then that you are worsted and that you suffer undeserved shame, do not repine over it, and do not lessen your crown by impatience. Look instead to heaven, to me, who have power to deliver you from all disgrace and injury, and to render to everyone according to his works. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis. Book 3, the 37th chapter. Pure and entire resignation of self to obtain freedom of heart. The voice of Christ. My child, renounce self, and you shall find me. Give up your own self-will, your possessions, and you shall always gain. For once you resign yourself irrevocably, greater grace will be given you. The disciple. How often, Lord, shall I resign myself, and in what shall I forsake myself? The voice of Christ. Always, at every hour, in small matters as well as great. I expect nothing. In all things, I wish you to be stripped of self. How otherwise can you be mine or I yours unless you be despoiled of your own will, both inwardly and outwardly? The sooner you do this, the better it will be for you, and the more fully and sincerely you do it, the more you will please me, and the greater gain you will merit. Some there are who reign themselves, but with certain reservation. They do not trust fully in God and therefore they try to provide for themselves. Others, again, at first offer all, but afterward are assailed by temptation and return to what they have renounced, thereby making no progress in virtue. These will not reach the true liberty of a pure heart, nor the grace of happy friendship with me, unless they first make a full resignation and a daily sacrifice of themselves. Without this no fruit union lasts nor will last. I have said to you very often, and now I say again, forsake yourself, renounce yourself, and you shall enjoy great inward peace. Give all for all, ask nothing, demand nothing in return. Trust purely with Trust purely and without hesitation in me, and you shall possess me. You will be free of heart, and darkness will not overwhelm you. You will be free of heart, and darkness will not overwhelm you. Strive for this, pray for this, desire this, to be stripped of all selfishness and naked to follow the naked Jesus, to die to self and live forever for me. Then all vain imaginations, all wicked disturbances, and superfluous cares will vanish. Then also immoderate fear will leave you, and inordinate love will die. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis. Book 3, the 38th chapter. The right ordering of external affairs. Recourse to God in dangers. The voice of Christ. My child, you must strive diligently to be inwardly free, to have mastery over yourself everywhere, in every external act and occupation, that all things be subject to you and not you to them, that you be the master and director of your actions, not a slave or a mere hired servant or a mere hired servant. You should be rather a free man and a true Hebrew, arising to the status and freedom of the children of God, who stand above present things to contemplate those which are eternal, who look upon passing affairs with the left eye and upon those of heaven with the right, whom temporal things do not so attract that they cling to them, but who rather put these things to such proper service as is ordained and instituted by God, the great workmaster, who leaves nothing unordered in his creation. If likewise in every happening you are not content simply with outward appearances, if you do not regard with carnal eyes things which you see and hear, but whatever be the affair, enter with Moses into the tabernacle to ask advice of the Lord. You will sometimes hear the divine answer and return instructed in many things present and to come. For Moses always had recourse to the tabernacle for the solution of doubts and questions, and fled to prayer for support in dangers and the evil deeds of men. So you also should take refuge in the secret chamber of your heart, begging earnestly for divine aid. For this reason, as we read, Joshua and the children of Israel were deceived by the Gibeonites because they did not first seek counsel of the Lord, but trusted too much in fair words, and hence were deceived by false pity. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, the 39th chapter, Book 3. A man should not be unduly solicitous about his affairs. The voice of Christ, my child, always commit your cause to me. I will dispose of it rightly in good time. Await my ordering of it, and it will be to your advantage. The disciple. Lord, I willingly commit all things to you, for my anxiety can profit me little. But I would that I were not so concerned about the future, and instead offered myself without hesitation to your good pleasure. The voice of Christ, my child. It often happens that a man seeks ardently after something he desires, and then, when he has attained it, he begins to think that it is not at all desirable. For affections do not remain fixed on the same thing, but rather flit from one to another. It is no very small matter, therefore, for a man to forsake himself even in things that are very small. A man's true progress consists in denying himself, and the man who has denied himself is truly free and secure. The old enemy, however, setting himself against all good, never ceases to tempt them, but day and night plots dangerous snares to cast the unwary into the net of deceit. Watch ye and pray, says the Lord, that ye enter not into temptation. Matthew 16:41. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, Book 3, the 40th chapter. Man has no good in himself and can glory in nothing. The disciple. Lord, what is man that you are mindful of him, or the Son of Man that you visit him? What has man deserved that you should give him your grace? What cause have I, Lord, to complain if you desert me, or what objection can I have if you do not do what I ask? This I may think and say in all truth, Lord, I am nothing, and myself I have nothing that is good. I am lacking in all things, and I am ever tending toward nothing. And unless I have your help and am inwardly strengthened by you, I become quite lukewarm and lax. But you, Lord, are always the same. You remain forever, always good, just, and holy, doing all things rightly, justly, and holily, disposing them wisely. I, however, who am more ready to go backward than forward, do not remain always in one state, for I change with the seasons. Yet my condition quickly improves when it pleases you, and when you reach forth your helping hand. For you alone, without human aid, can help me and strengthen me so greatly that my heart shall no more change, but be converted and rest solely in you. Hence, if I knew well how to cast aside all earthly consolation, either to attain devotion or because of the necessity which, in the absence of human solace, compels me to seek you alone, then I could deservedly hope for your grace and rejoice in the gift of new consolation. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, Book 3, Chapter 40, continued. Thanks be to you, from whom all things come, whenever it is well with me. In your sight I am vanity and nothingness, a weak, unstable man. In what, therefore, can I glory, and how can I wish to be highly regarded? It is because I am nothing. This too is utterly vain. Indeed, the greatest vanity is the evil plague of empty self glory, because it draws one away from true glory and robs one of heavenly grace. For when a man is pleased with himself, he displeases you. When he pants after human praise, he is deprived of true virtue. But it is true glory and holy exaltation to glory in you and not in self, to rejoice in your name rather than in one's own virtue, and not to delight in any creature except for your sake. Let your name, not mine, be praised. Let your work, not mine, be magnified. Let your holy name be blessed. But let no human praise be given to me. You are my glory. You are the joy of my heart. In you I will glory and rejoice all the day, and for myself I will glory in nothing but my infirmities. Let the Jews seek the glory that comes from another. I will seek that which comes from God alone. All human glory, all temporal honor, all worldly position is truly vanity and foolishness compared to your everlasting glory. O my truth, my mercy, my God, O blessed Trinity, to you alone be praise and honor, power and glory throughout all the endless ages of ages. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, Book 3, the 41st chapter. Contempt for all earthly honor, the voice of Christ. My child, do not take it to heart if you see others honored and advanced, while you yourself are despised and humbled. Lift up your heart to me in heaven, and the contempt of men on earth will not grieve you. The disciple, Lord, we are blinded and quickly misled by vanity. If I examine myself rightly, no injury has ever been done me by any creature, hence I have nothing for which I make just complaint to you. But I have sinned often and gravely against you, therefore is every creature in arms against me. Confusion and contempt should in justice come upon me, but to you due praise, honor, and glory. And unless I prepare myself to be willingly despised and forsaken by every creature, to be considered absolutely nothing, I cannot have interior peace and strength, nor can I be enlightened spiritually or completely united with you. Or completely united with you. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, Book 3, the 42nd chapter. Peace is not to be placed in men. The voice of Christ. My child, if you place your peace in any creature because of your own feeling or for the sake of his company, you will be unsettled and entangled. But if you have recourse to the ever living and abiding truth, you will not grieve if a friend should die or forsake you. Your love for your friend should be grounded in me, and for my sake you should love whoever seems to be good in very dear and is very dear to you in this life. Your love for your friend should be grounded in me, and for my sake you should love whoever seems to be good and is very dear to you in this life. Without me, friendship has no strength and cannot endure. Love which I do not bind is neither true nor pure. You ought, therefore, to be so dead to such human affections as to wish, as far as lies within you, to be without the fellowship of men. Man draws nearer to God in proportion as he withdraws further from all earthly comfort, and he ascends higher to God as he descends lower into himself and grows more vile in his own eyes. He who attributes any good to himself hinders God's grace from coming into his heart, for the grace of the Holy Spirit seeks always the humble heart. If you knew how to annihilate yourself completely and empty yourself of all created love, then I should overflow in you with great grace. When you look to creatures, the sight of the Creator is taken from you. Learn therefore to conquer yourself in all things for the sake of your Maker. Then you will be able to attain to divine knowledge. But anything, no matter how small, that is loud and regarded inordinately, keeps you back from the highest good and corrupts the soul. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, Book 3, the 43rd chapter. Beware vain and worldly knowledge. The voice of Christ. My child, do not let the fine surroundings and subtle words of men deceive you, for the kingdom of heaven consists not in talk, but in virtue. Attend rather to my words, which enkindle the heart and enlighten the mind, which excite contrition and abound in manifold consolation. Never read them for the purpose of appearing more learned or more wise. Apply yourself to mortifying your vices, for this will benefit you more than your understanding of many difficult questions. Though you shall have read and learned many things, it will always be necessary for you to return to this one principle. I am he who teaches man knowledge, and to the little ones I give a clearer understanding than can be taught by man. He to whom I speak will soon be wise, and his soul will profit. But woe to those who inquire of men about many curious things and care very little about the way they serve me. The time will come when Christ, the teacher of teachers, the Lord of angels, will appear to hear the lessons of all, that is, to examine the conscience of everyone. Then he will search Jerusalem with lamps, and the hidden things of darkness will be brought to light, and the arguments of men's tongues be silenced. I am he who, in one moment, so enlightens the humble mind that it comprehends more of eternal truth than could be learned by 10 years in the school. I teach without noise of words or clash of opinions, without ambition for honor or confusion of argument. I am he who teaches man to despise earthly possessions and to loathe present things, to ask after the eternal, to hunger for heaven, to fly honors and to bear with scandals, to place all hope in me, to desire nothing apart from me, and to love me ardently above all things. For a certain man, by loving me, intimately learned divine truths and spoke wonders. He profited more by leaving all things than by studying subtle questions. To some I speak of common things, to others of special matters. To some I appear with sweetness in signs and figures, and to others I appear in great light and reveal mysteries. The voice of books is but a single voice, yet it does not teach all men alike, because I within them am the teacher and the truth, the examiner of hearts, the understander of thoughts, the promoter of acts, distributing to each as I see fit. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, Book 3, the 44th chapter. Do not be concerned about outward things. The voice of Christ. My child, there are many matters of which it is well for you to be ignorant, and to consider yourself as one who is dead upon the earth, and to whom the whole world is crucified. There are many things too which it is well to pass by with a deaf ear, thinking instead of what is more of what is more to your peace. It is more profitable to turn away from things which displease you, and to leave to every man his own opinion, than to take part in quarrelsome talk. If you stand well with God and look to his judgment, you will more easily bear being worsted. The disciple. To what have we come, Lord? Behold, we bewail a temporal loss. We labor and fret for a small gain, while loss of the soul is forgotten and scarcely ever returns to mind. That which is of little or no value claims our attention, whereas that which is of highest necessity is neglected. All because man gives himself wholly to outward things, and unless he withdraws himself quickly, he will he willingly lies immersed in externals, and unless he withdraws himself quickly, he willingly lies immersed in externals. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, the 45th chapter. All men are not to be believed, for it is easy to err in speech. The Disciple. Grant me help in my deeds, O Lord, for the aid of man is useless. How often have I failed to find faithfulness in places where I thought I possessed it, and how many times I have found it where I least expected it. Vain therefore is hope in men, but the salvation of the just is in you. O God, blessed be your name. O Lord my God, in everything that befalls us, we are weak and unstable, quickly deceived and changed. Who is the man that is able to guard himself with such caution and care as not sometimes to fall into deception or perplexity? He who confides in you, O Lord, and seeks you with a simple heart, does not fall so easily. And if some trouble should come upon him, no matter how entangled in it he may be, he will be more quickly delivered and comforted by you. For you will not forsake him who trusts in you to the very end. Rare is the friend who remains faithful through all his friends' distress. But you, Lord, and you alone, are entirely faithful in all things. Other than you, there is none so faithful. Oh, how wise is that holy soul who said, "My mind is firmly settled and founded in Christ." If that were true of me, if that were true of me, if that were true of me, human fear would not so easily cause me anxiety, nor would the darts of words disturb. But who can foresee all things and provide against all evils? And if things foreseen have often hurt, can those which are unlooked for do otherwise than wound us gravely? Why indeed have I not provided better for my wretched self? Why too have I so easily kept faith in others? We are but men, however, nothing more than weak men, although we are thought by many to be and are called angels. In whom shall I put my faith, Lord? In whom but you? You are the truth which does not deceive and cannot be deceived. Every man, on the other hand, is a liar, weak, unstable, and likely to err, especially in words, so that one ought not to be too quick to believe even that which seems, on the face of it, to sound true. How wise was your warning to beware of men, that a man's enemies are those of his own household. How wise was your warning to beware of men, that a man's enemies are those of his own household, that we should not believe if anyone says, "Behold, he is here," or "Behold, he is there." I have been taught to my own cost, and I hope it has given me greater caution, not greater folly. Beware, they say, beware and keep to yourself what I tell you. Then, while I keep silent, believing that the matter is secret, he who asks me to be silent cannot remain silent himself, but immediately betrays both me and himself and goes his way. From tales of this kind and from such careless men protect me, O Lord, lest I fall into their hands and into their ways. Put in my mouth words that are true and steadfast, and keep far from me the crafty tongue. Because what I am not willing to suffer, I ought by all means to shun. Oh, how good and how peaceful it is to be silent about others, not to believe without discrimination all that is said, not easily to report it further, to reveal oneself to few, always to seek you as the discerner of hearts, and not to be blown away by every wind of words, but to wish that all things within and beyond us be done according to the pleasure of thy will. How conducive it is for the keeping of heavenly grace to fly the gaze of men, not to seek abroad things which seem to cause admiration, but to follow with utmost diligence those which give fervor and amendment of life. How many have been harmed by having their virtue known and praised too hastily, and how truly profitable it has been when grace remained hidden during this frail life, which is all temptation and warfare. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, Book 3, the 46th chapter. Trust in God against slander. The voice of Christ. My child, stand firm and trust in me, for what are words but words? They fly through the air but hurt not a stone. If you are guilty, consider how you would gladly amend. If you are not conscious of any fault, think that you wish to bear this for the sake of God. It is little enough for you occasionally to endure words, since you are not yet strong enough to bear hard blows. And why do such small matters pierce you to the heart, unless because you are still carnal and pay more heed to men than you ought? You do not wish to be reproved for your faults, and you seek shelter in excuses because you are afraid of being despised. But look into yourself more thoroughly, and you will learn that the world is still alive in you in a vain desire to please men. For men, for when you shrink from being abased and confounded for your failings, it is plain indeed that you are not truly humble or truly dead to the world, and that the world is not crucified in you. Listen to my word, and you will not value 10,000 words of men. Behold, if every malicious thing that could possibly be invented were uttered against you, what harm could it do if you ignored it all and gave it no more thought than you would a blade of grass? Could it so much as pluck one hair from your head? He who does not keep his heart within him, and who does not have God before his eyes, is easily moved by a word of disparagement. He who trusts in me, on the other hand, and who has no desire to stand by his own judgment, will be free from the fear of men. For I am the judge and discerner of all secrets. I know how all things happen, I know who causes injury and who suffers it. From me, that word proceeded, and with my permission, it happened that out of my heart's thoughts, that out of many hearts' thoughts may be revealed. I shall judge the guilty and the innocent, but I have wished beforehand to try them both by secret judgment. The testimony of man is often deceiving, but my judgment is true. It will stand and not be overthrown. It is hidden from many and made known to but a few. Yet it is never mistaken and cannot be mistaken, even though it does not seem right in the eyes of the unwise. To me, therefore, you ought to come in every decision, not depending on your own judgment, for the just man will not be disturbed, no matter what may befall him from God. Even if an unjust charge be made against him, he will not be much troubled, neither will he exult vainly if through others he is justly acquitted. He considers that it is I who search the hearts and inmost thoughts of men, that I do not judge according to the face of things or human appearances, for what the judgment of man considers praiseworthy is often worthy of blame in my sight. The disciple, O Lord God, just judge, strong and patient. O Lord God, just judge, strong and patient. You who know the weakness and depravity of men, be my strength and all my confidence, for my own conscience is not sufficient for me. You know what I do not know, and therefore I ought to humble myself whenever I am accused and bear it meekly. Forgive me then in your mercy for my every failure in this regard, and give me once more the grace of greater endurance. Better to me is your abundant mercy in obtaining pardon than the justice which I imagine in defending the secrets of my conscience. And though I am not conscious to myself of any fault, yet thereby justly myself I cannot thereby justify myself, because without your mercy no man living will be justified in your sight. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, Book 3, the 47th chapter. Every trial must be borne for the sake of eternal life. The voice of Christ, My child, do not let the labors which you have taken up for my sake break you, and do not let troubles from whatever source cast you down, but in everything let my promise strengthen and console you. I am able to reward you beyond all means and measure. You will not labor here long, nor will you always be oppressed by sorrows. Wait a little while, and you will see a speedy end of evils. The hour will come when all labor and trouble shall be no more. All that passes away with time is trivial. What you do, do well. Work faithfully in my vineyard. I will be your reward. Write, read, sing, mourn, keep silent, pray, and bear hardships like a man. Eternal life is worth all these and greater battles. Peace will come on a day which is known to the Lord, and then there shall be no day or night as at present, but perpetual light, infinite brightness, lasting peace, and safe repose. Then you will not say, Who shall deliver me from the body of this death? Nor will you cry, Woe is me, because my sojourn is prolonged. For then death will be banished, and there will be health unfailing. There will be no anxiety then, but blessed joy and sweet, noble companionship. If you could see the everlasting crowns of the saints in heaven and the great glory wherein they now rejoice, they who were once considered contemptible in this world and as it were unworthy of life itself, you would certainly humble yourself at once to the very earth and seek to be subject to all, rather than to command even one. Nor would you desire the pleasant days of this life, but rather be glad to suffer for God, considering it your greatest gain to be counted as nothing among men. Oh, if these things appealed to you and penetrated deeply into your heart, how could you dare to complain even once? Ought not all trials be borne for the sake of everlasting life? In truth, the loss or gain of God's kingdom is no small matter. Lift up your countenance to heaven then. Behold me, and with me all my saints. They had great trials in this life, but now they rejoice. They are consoled. Now they are safe and at rest, and they shall abide with me for all eternity in the kingdom of my Father. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, Book 3, the 48th chapter, The Day of Eternity and the Distress of this Life. The Day of Eternity and the Distresses of this Life. The Disciple. O most happy mansion of the city above, O most bright day of eternity, which night does not darken, but which the highest truth ever enlightens. O day, ever joyful and ever secure, which never changes its state to the opposite. Oh, that this day shine forth, that all these temporal things come to an end. It envelops the saints, all resplendent with heavenly brightness, but it appears far off as through a glass to us wanderers on the earth. The citizens of heaven know how joyful the day is, but the exiled sons of Eve mourn that this one is bitter and tedious. The days of this life are short and evil, full of grief and distress. Here man is defiled by many sins, ensnared in many passions, enslaved by many fears, and burdened with many cares. He is distracted by many curiosities and entangled in many vanities, surrounded by many errors, and worn by many labors, oppressed by temptations, weakened by pleasures, and tortured by want. Oh, when will these evils end? Oh, when will these evils end? When shall I be freed from the miserable slavery of vice? When, Lord, shall I think of you alone? When, Lord, shall I think of you alone? When shall I fully rejoice in you? When shall I be without hindrance in true liberty, free from every grievance of mind and body? When will there be solid peace, undisturbed and secure, inward peace and outward peace, peace secured on every side? O good Jesus, when shall I stand to gaze upon you? When shall I contemplate the glory of your kingdom? When will you be all in all to me? Oh, when shall I be with you in that kingdom of yours, which you have prepared for your beloved from all eternity? I am left poor and exiled in a hostile land, where every day sees wars and every great misfortunes, and very great misfortunes. I am left poor and exiled in a hostile land, where every day sees wars and very great misfortunes. Console my banishment, assuage my sorrow. My whole desire is for you. Whatever solace this world offers is a burden to me. I desire to enjoy you intimately, but I cannot attain to it. I wish to cling fast to heavenly things, but temporal efforts and unmortified passions bear me down. I wish in mind to be above all things, but I am forced by the flesh to be unwillingly subject to them. Thus I fight with myself unhappy that I am, and am become a burden to myself, while my spirit seeks to rise upward and my flesh to sink downward. Oh, what inward suffering I undergo when I consider heavenly things, when I